Russia has invaded Ukraine. It's your boy Max, and I'll be talking about Putin's full-scale war against Ukraine. Putin and Russia have done the unthinkable. They have invaded a sovereign nation. That's right, they have mounted an air, land, sea, and cyber war. For me personally, I'm surprised Putin was bold enough to make this move. For me, this issue is personal. I was born in neighboring Moldova, and I still have family that live there. And if Putin takes Ukraine, Moldova is next on the chopping block. Before I go on, let me give everyone a little background. Back in November of 2013, the Euromaidan protests began after then Ukrainian President Viktor Yanukovych started moving away from an association agreement that was to establish closer ties with the European Union and instead looked eastward toward the Russian Federation. Afterward, Ukrainians took to the streets to protest the move and show support for establishing closer ties with the European Union. As this was going on, predominantly Russian-speaking areas of eastern Ukraine opposed the Euromaidan protests and instead continued to show support for Yanukovych. Violence escalated in January of 2014 when the government accepted anti-protest laws. Anti-government demonstrators occupied buildings in the center of Kyiv, and in the end, the riots left 98 dead and thousands injured. In February of 2014, members of parliament voted to remove the president and set an election for May 25th. After the ousting of Yanukovych, Vladimir Putin began preparations to annex Crimea. After Russian troops took control of Crimea, a controversial referendum was held where 97% of Crimeans wished to join with Russia. And as all of this was happening, armed militias in Donetsk and Luhansk in eastern Ukraine took control of up to a third of the Donbas area, which includes both of those oblasts. And since 2014, this insurgency has been ongoing. Fast forward to spring of 2021, Russia began a military buildup along its border with Ukraine. And finally, just 2 days ago, Putin ordered the Russian military to enter the breakaway regions of Donetsk and Luhansk, calling it a peacekeeping mission. Responding to this, President Biden announced heavy financial sanctions against Russia and promised additional sanctions if Russian troops cross into Ukraine proper. And sure enough, earlier today, Russian President Putin announced a special military operation to demilitarize Ukraine. In my opinion, this move by Russia and Putin is disastrous. Obviously, we have to talk about the genuine fears Russia may have with NATO encroachment, and yes, with that in mind, Western leaders should have done better to address those fears. However, Putin invading Ukraine is only creating a bigger mess. He is undermining a sovereign nation. And clearly for Putin, the idea of NATO encroaching on his sphere of influence is just cover for seeking to establish an imperial Russia. I'm already hearing people say, what about the West? What about the United States? But that does not negate the fact that what Putin is doing is criminal. And that's on top of him and his oligarchy friends sucking all the money out of Russia as the standard of living continues to drop. I'm certain that as we look back on this, it will be a geopolitical disaster. And it already is. But that's to say, so was the US invasion of Iraq. But looking at Russian history, it will be a disaster, as was the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan or the Russo-Japanese War in Tsarist Russia. This move by Russia has many implications. What does this mean for Europe or the United States? For starters, increased military spending in Europe and more money for US military contractors. Zooming out, what could this mean looking at China's pursuit for Taiwan? China is watching very closely, assessing how the global community may react. Overall, I hope for the best, but we must prepare for the worst. These are very scary times, especially for those living in Ukraine. My sister, who lives in neighboring Moldova, expresses similar sentiments. As a matter of fact, fighting in Ukraine can be heard from Moldova. In the coming days and weeks, I hope to post more about this. Until then, hit that like button, comment, and subscribe. It's your boy Max, over and out.